Generosity's Triumph in the Forest. In a lush forest, where the trees were adorned with emerald leaves and the air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers, there lived a squirrel named Sammy. Sammy was a small, fluffy creature with a bushy tail and bright, curious eyes. He wore a small, red scarf around his neck, which made him look somewhat distinguished among his fellow forest creatures. Sammy was known for being the greediest and most selfish squirrel in the entire forest. He would hoard all the nuts he found, never sharing with the other animals. His mischievous grin often accompanied his refusal to help others, and he believed that he deserved all the food for himself because he had worked hard to collect it. One day, a harsh winter storm hit the forest, and all the animals were struggling to find food. Sammy, with his stash of nuts, was well prepared and didn't have to worry about going hungry. But the other animals, like the rabbits, birds, and chipmunks, were desperate for food. Despite their pleas for help, Sammy refused to share his nuts with them. "I worked hard for these nuts," he would say, "and I deserve to keep them all for myself." The other animals grew weaker and more desperate as the days passed, and they tried to steal nuts from Sammy, but he fiercely guarded his stash, refusing to give any of it away. One night, as Sammy slept soundly in his cozy nest filled with nuts, a group of animals gathered outside his tree. "We need to teach Sammy a lesson about selfishness," whispered a wise old owl. "He must learn that sharing is important." The next morning, when Sammy woke up, he was shocked to find that all his nuts had disappeared. "What happened to my nuts?" he cried out in disbelief. The other animals had taken them while he slept, and they had left a note for him. "Dear Sammy," the note read, "we took your nuts because you refused to share with us during our time of need. We hope this teaches you a valuable lesson about the importance of kindness and generosity." Sammy was devastated and realized that his selfishness had cost him everything. "I was wrong to be so selfish," Sammy said to himself. "I should have shared my nuts with the other animals. I've learned my lesson, and I promise to be more generous from now on." Feeling remorseful, Sammy went to apologize to the other animals and promised to share his food from then on. The animals forgave him, and together they worked to gather enough food to survive the rest of the winter. From that day on, Sammy became known as the most generous squirrel in the forest, always willing to help others in need. He would share his nuts with the other animals, and they would often gather around him, grateful for his kindness and friendship. And so, the selfish squirrel learned a valuable lesson about the power of kindness and generosity. He realized that by helping others, he was not only making their lives better but also enriching his own. The forest was a happier place because of it, and Sammy's red scarf became a symbol of his newfound generosity. As the seasons changed and the forest came alive with the vibrant colors of spring, Sammy sat atop a tall oak tree, watching the other animals play and frolic. He smiled, knowing that he had found true happiness by sharing his nuts and his heart with his friends in the forest. As the first rays of spring sunshine danced upon the forest floor, Sammy the squirrel could feel a change in the air. The once barren trees now blossomed with life, and the chorus of birdsong filled the air. Sammy, once a selfish creature, had undergone a transformation. No longer did he hoard his food, but instead shared it generously with his fellow animals. His bushy tail flicked with excitement as he decided to teach the younger creatures about the importance of community and cooperation. Sammy gathered the young animals around him, his bright eyes sparkling with wisdom. "You see, my little friends," he began, "we are all part of this great forest, and we must work together to ensure its prosperity. By sharing our resources and helping one another, we can create a harmonious community that thrives in the face of adversity. The young animals listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen Sammy so selfless and kind before, and they were eager to learn from him. As they practiced sharing their food and helping one another, a sense of camaraderie grew among them, and the forest seemed to hum with newfound energy. However, not all the animals in the forest were as eager to embrace Sammy's newfound values. A group of boastful crows, led by the arrogant Crowley, watched from the treetops with disdain. "What is this foolishness?" Crowley cawed, his beady eyes narrowing. "Why should we share our food with these lowly creatures when we could have it all for ourselves?" Sammy, undeterred by Crowley's mockery, continued to teach the young animals. "Remember, my friends," he said, "it is not the size of our hoard that matters, but the generosity of our hearts. By sharing our resources, we create a stronger, more resilient community that can weather any storm." Crowley, growing increasingly irritated by Sammy's teachings, hatched a plan to discredit the small squirrel. He challenged Sammy to a nut-gathering contest, boasting that he and his fellow crows would easily outperform the squirrel and his followers. Sammy, faced with this challenge, paused for a moment. He knew that participating in the contest would go against his new values, but he also understood the importance of standing up for what he believed in. With a determined look in his eyes, he accepted Crowley's challenge. The day of the contest arrived, and the forest buzzed with excitement. Sammy and his followers gathered their tools, while Crowley and his crows preened their feathers and cawed with confidence. As the contest began, the animals raced through the forest, each group determined to gather as many nuts as possible. As the sun began to set, the animals returned to the clearing, their cheeks bulging with nuts. Crowley and his crows had indeed gathered a large hoard, but Sammy and his followers had managed to collect an even greater number. The young animals cheered, their hearts swelling with pride at their accomplishment. Crowley, his beak hanging open in disbelief, could hardly believe what he had witnessed. Sammy, the once selfish squirrel, had not only won the contest but had also demonstrated the power of community and cooperation. As the animals celebrated their victory, Crowley slunk away, his arrogance replaced by a newfound respect for Sammy and his followers. From that day forward, Sammy continued to share his food and teach the younger animals about the importance of community and cooperation. His wisdom and generosity had transformed the forest, creating a harmonious and thriving ecosystem that would endure for generations to come. And as the seasons changed and the years passed, Sammy remained the forest's most generous and respected creature, a symbol of the power of kindness and selflessness.